How's everybody doing tonight? You see it. I'll talk a little bit about CISOs and physical security. Let's see. I'm struggle streaming, so let me see what's going on. Hope everybody's having a good night. Okay, I see it. Let's see. Okay, that looks pretty good. So you see the thumbnail. So once again, letting people fall in. I'll talk a little bit about physical security with the latest events going on. So it's gonna talk about cybersecurity once again at a different angle. Checking a few things while people falling in. My thumbnail wasn't very good, but once again, we're gonna get at it, see what's going on with it. Once again, you know how we do it. Put what's up, Chaos Ryan? Glad you can join me. So we there. So we know there's been a catastrophe, right, with all the school shootings. So we're gonna talk. Yeah, you see it. Shout out to Casual Economist joining me. So we're gonna talk about the physical side of cybersecurity. We're gonna go over active shooter. If you've been in schools, and even a lot of businesses do that, that's handled by the CISO, right? Chief Information Security Officer. A lot of times that falls under compliance, right? So once again, we're just gonna hit it real quick. You know, if you got any IT questions or cybersecurity questions, throw them in the box and we'll get to them. So, like I said, I'm going to get on it. Let me find my little slide. So, let's see. We're going to touch on FERPA. So, what is FERPA? Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. That's really for schools. Then, under that, once again, we're going to talk a little bit about active shooter. That falls under FERPA. Actually, they report to Department of Homeland Security actually does that for the every agency, including education, right? So once again, we're gonna just go over a couple of slides, and we're gonna call it tabletop. We're gonna walk through what that should look like. We saw the horrible active shooter. What's up, Damon? Good game you get. I appreciate it. So once again, it's just a different part. And once again, I used to do this for a large state agency. So we should do tornadoes, active shooter, earthquake. So you would go through those scenarios. So you want to make sure your employees are aware where they should go, right? If it's a tornado or if it's an earthquake or fire, where should you go? Your supervisors, they need to be able to say who's here and who's not here. It's cool when you got a 10-person firm, but I worked at a large agency with 1,000 people, right? So if it's a fire, where do you meet? It's like you in high school and middle school, right? Meet by the tree, meet by this. I need to check you out before you go, right? So we're just gonna walk through what that should look like. And y'all, I know a lot of people got kids. You need to reach out to your school and ask them for active shooter or a tornado or fire, what's the process? Because if you rolling to get your kids, if you know the process, right, you kind of know where there should be or how to pick them up or what that should look like. What's your opinion on the watch guard search? I'm really not aware of those, to be honest, Casual Connors. Give me a little background on those. Hell, there's so many certs now. I ain't gonna lie, I'm not familiar with the watch. I'm still trying to work on my AWS. Then there's Cisco's Blue Team, level Blue Team 1, level 2. There's risk certs. There's so many certs out there. I'm not really hip to that, Casual Economist. There's so many certs come out. Fatherland security based on the live 9/11. I don't even know how to respond to that, man. You're welcome. So once again, let's hit that again. Let's see, keep it moving. So on your typical organization, or no matter how big it is, once again, I worked for 1,000. I used to work for DOD Finance. I think they had 30,000 employees on DOD Finance. DoD logistics had 130,000. So depending on where you at and what company, I used to work for a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical companies. I think they had all good. I think they had, I want to say they had 25,000. So we over here in security, you got the CEO, the CIO, the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, CTO, but under the CISO, you'll have compliance, you'll have we have identity and identity management under CISO. We have our security analysts, right? So, but still, we would have to work with the CTO, right? Because they're gonna have all the programmers and stuff. But from a compliance standpoint, which active shooter is gonna be under the Chief Information Security Officer. Every now and then, I see it. We were so big, we had an inspector general, so they did a little physical security. But most companies, it's gonna be under the CISO from a compliance standpoint. I can't post links I just heard about. Let me mod you up. I'm lacking. Let me mod you up real quick. Casual. Let me spin up my YouTube real quick. Oh, probably gonna bog down my stream. So once again, we're gonna go over tabletop, meaning we're just gonna kind of walk through kind of what we saw in the news, what should happen in real life. So I'm trying to give out a couple wrenches. I'm slow today. Once again, put them in the box. If you got any questions or comments, put them in the box. We're gonna make it happen. Let me wrench up casual. That is understandable. Give it 5 minutes. Give it 5 minutes, casual. Drop that link in there, that cert. Let's see. And once again, that's the standard org. So usually have the CIO. Big companies, you have Chief Information Officer, CTO, head of programming, head of DBAs. I've seen all of that. All those big orgs, like you said, you have a lot of other infrastructure would be over there. All right. So all that would be under the CIO. All right. Then you had your programming staff. So understanding, once again, we're going to hit physical cybersecurity. We don't talk about that enough, I think. So once again, let's hit that and let's see. I borrowed this company. Shout out to Agility. They had their active shooter. A tabletop is a cybersecurity exercise you just do on paper, right? So the first thing you do, especially as a large organization, the chief security information officers say, well, let's do a tabletop, meaning we're going to walk through it on paper before we start having people to go outside, go to a certain area, right? Let's see if we can walk through it on paper. If it doesn't work on paper, it's not going to work in real life, right? So this company did an excellent job of a tabletop. So we're just going to kind of walk through it. It's 27 slides. We're going to flow through it real quick. Once again, if you have any questions, just put them in a box. We hitting that physical security today. Active shooter. We've seen a lot of bad things happen in the world. PB Only's got a couple rules. Don't mess with little kids and leave women alone, man. Anything else, I'm from the dirt, man. We can figure out. So those are my two big things. So I hate to see little kids in tough situations like that. So once again, let's hit it. So we're going to talk about the tabletop exercise, what we're going to learn. And at the end, we always call it the post-mortem, right? So when we walk through this paper exercise, what did we learn and what can we get better, right? As we go through, y'all can put questions in there or interject into the tabletop exercise. I got paid for doing these a lot, so I'm super familiar with tabletop. It's designed to help to ensure your program. And a lot of times, once again, compliance, if you're talking NIST, FERPA, any of the government compliance, they expect you to do a tabletop at least once a year on something, being active shooter, tornado, even most of the times we do cybersecurity, do a tabletop that if you got a malware in your HR system and you're trying to get paid, right? What will be the steps for you doing a manual paycheck, right? But once again, we're focusing on active shooter, so let's get it. This is your opportunity to validate the plans and enable you to effectively continue a business in the short term and then effectively recover and return to business as usual, right? We know RIP, some people lost their lives, right? So we don't want to take light of it, but a lot of times businesses do have to get back to business, right? Kids is something else, right? Hopefully they had some psychological and some people to talk to them, but business is going to get back to business, right? So how do we respond? Once again, this is active shooter. You can run, have an escape route and plan, leave your belongings behind. You can hide. I'm on the move, man. I don't know if I'm hiding. I feel like I get cornered. Fight. I'm old. I ain't trying to fight, man, especially if I'm my arm right, though. I'm trying to get away. I'm trying to get my sneakers on, right? The weird thing is, I used to work out there. Shout out to the ladies. They were like, if something happened and you by our desk, grab our purses, then run outside, usually for a fire drill, though. So I had the assignment to get the ladies' purses, right? Because you could be in a meeting and they force you to go outside. They're like, if we ain't there, grab the purses, right? So now on the serious note, you want to run. And two is what's your escape route? When you go in buildings, and I always tell kids, I always get on my grandkids is know your exit route. This is not a joke. When something happens, you got to get on the move. Know your exit routes, right? So two is if you have to hide, what conference rooms or rooms have thick doors? Don't go in a room where they got a glass door, right? So I try to teach my grandkids, I'm like, you got to pay attention because when this stuff is real, everybody's nervous. Ain't nobody paying attention. Ain't nobody doing the right thing. So I'm like, dude, you got to pay attention when they're explaining it to you, right? I'll check that out after the stream, Casual Economist. But so those are the big three, and we all been there, right? So you as a cybersecurity person, and it's super hard when you're talking to adults, right? Because they never think something like this is gonna happen. I'm sure to get kids to pay attention is probably as hard as probably getting adults, right? Because you don't expect this to happen in real life, right? But the three basic things, right? Run, hide, and fight. And two is if you run outside, where the teacher's gonna have you congregate at, because if I'm coming to get you, I need to know where you at. Right. If I know your class is gonna be by this tree or across the street or by this fire hydrant, when I'm rolling up, right, I know where to come and get you at, right? I don't have to ask people where's class 38, where the third graders at. I know where you at because I got that information ahead of time, right? Something is better equivalent to those, let me know. I ain't trying to waste money and time on certain. No, that's facts, man. You gotta stay focused and get your certs and kind of come up with an educational plan of what you're trying to accomplish. Shout out to Casual Economists. No, that's 100%. When a law enforcement arrives, and this is huge. Let me get back. Oh, officers will usually be in teams, right? Because they're running in. They don't know what's happening. They just know it's a shooter. They don't know if it's one person or a team of five. They don't know if it's a hostage situation. So they trying to figure out what's going on, right? I'm sure they getting some info as they're rolling up, but a lot of times if you hear gunfire in a school or an office, you just trying to figure out where they're at and how many of it, right? They may be in uniform or tactical gear. This is huge right here. First responders won't help victims until the threat is neutralized. Right. So when your state police coming in, hopefully it's not like the National Guards. We saw the other one where they had multiple agencies, right? They got to figure out what's going on. So they're not going to stop and help people. Right. So you got to figure that out. Remain calm and follow directions. A lot of times they believe and I did a video on it when they swatted a team. When the police came in the classroom, they told all the students, keep your hands visible and avoid sudden movements because they don't know if the bad guys trying to mingle with the good people or the people that are hostage, right? So they want to see all hands, right? Avoid pointing, screaming, and yelling. Right, they're trying to focus and figure out what's going on with the situation and expect to be detained, right? Because they're trying to figure out what's going on. They really don't know who's the good guys and bad guys. They think they know, but they want to make sure everybody's detained until they figure things out, right? So don't don't be panicking, don't be screaming, follow directions, and always show your hands, right? So there's no confusion. Be ready. Establish a partnership with local law enforcement and first responders. So if you're a company as a school, part of your, and they probably gonna get to this at the end, maybe not, because I haven't read it all this. Part of your tabletop is where are my local police coming from? Right? Is it one police station? Or do I need to call multiple police stations? Right. Usually you're gonna call 911, but you need to work with them to figure out what's the process. Do they want kids to walk with their hands up? Do they want kids to touch the wall? What's the process so you don't have to guess, right? So you want to do a partnership with those. Implement an action plan that addresses the active shooter scenarios. Designate at least one or two recommended safe rooms on each floor to ensure everyone is aware of the location. Conduct awareness training for personnel to ensure everyone recognize and understand the warning signs of potential violence. Test and drill your plan. And remember, if you see something, say something. Right. So, as a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, or a compliance director, or me as a consultant, what is our plan of action? Right. How do we get out the building? How do we get police in the building? Right. How do we alert the whole building that there's an issue? Is it a certain sound? Is it, I mean, I'm sure we're not pulling up the fire bell, but what's the bell for active shooter? Right? How do we make it known that there's an active shooter in, right? And two is, can you figure out what floor they're on? Are there cameras so you can follow people in your building? Right. So if you have a partnership with the first responders, they know, okay, they got a CT scan, they got a CT monitoring system. We can figure out who went in, we can figure out what floor they're on, we can figure out how many people it is, right? Coordinate, improve coordination team among various members of your crisis team. Communication, evaluate communication process among team members and other group. Decision making, access the decision making process and activation of your team. So when you have, we worked on this, is okay, you got an active shooter, right? And if somebody gets shot, now you got to really work with police, sheriff, and the hospitals, the local hospitals, right? How do you tell them, okay, we got 5 people hurt or 20 people hurt? They might need to come from multiple hospitals, right? So when you call 911 for police, then you call 911 for the hospital. What information do they expect you to have, right? Can you guess? Can you make an assumption with how many shots? But what is the decision making for when you make that call? You can give them the proper information, right? And that's what they talked about on their communication. Right. Once again, I worked at a large state agency and we talked about some of this from active shooters to fire to tornado or if people hurt, right? If it's one person or 20, what's your communication? And two is, how does that local hospital or local organization, how do they want you to communicate with them? Right? How do you know? You just call and ask them. Right. So, and a lot of people, because you don't want to be trying to figure this stuff out when stuff is happening. And that's the big deal. You want to have all these active shooter things. And a lot of times, if your kids are in school, you need to ask them, what's your plan? Can I see your plan? Right, FERPA's part of this. They supposed to write that up. They supposed to review it every year, and they're supposed to test it, even if it's a tabletop. Right. So what does that look like? Guiding principles: train and learning exercise is not a test. There are no hidden gems or trick questions. It's not about the scenario, it's about the response. There are no simple solutions. That's true. There may be more than one response. We just talked about that. Think about your location and situation and how you respond. And that's why you want to do these tabletops and start working through those scenarios. Right. Okay, there's active shooter. One person got hurt. 10 people got hurt. All right. How do we, once again, notify those agencies? The two is, how do you notify the parents? Right. There's a lot of services now. You can sign up. You hit a button, it'll send out a mass email to everybody. Right. You can pre-sign those up. Those are different organizations that have those. And I would think, from a school standpoint, they do it from homework and aka snow days. You need to do have that in a place for active shooter. We got a problem, right? You hit a button and it goes out to all the parents, but then you got to be careful with, you're gonna have 1,000 parents showing up, right? So you want to let them know, but two is you want to make sure they're not in the way of the first responders, right? So that's give and take, right? And how that wants to be, right? I've been, I can see both sides. First responders, I need to get in, I need to neutralize, I need to triage and figure out what's happening. If I'm a parent, I'm trying to figure out where my baby's at, right? So you got to be able to handle both of those. And once again, they have those services where you can they can sign up for text, and that's just so common now, right? They signing up for snow days, text, and homework and issues. So I think as part of active shooter, there should be a sign up for you to get text on your phone, right? So when there's an issue, they can hit a button, let everybody know, and really keep you abreast of the situation, right? Obviously, you've seen obviously a lot of people going to show up. Background information: and most sunny days. So this is they're walking it through in Atlanta. Forecast of 91 degrees. The company recently terminated an employee who had been there for 8 years. He was escorted out the building by security and HR. He yelled, "You will regret treating me like this," right? So that right there should, if you're HR, you should be like, "Oh, okay." HR needs to let the CISO know and let, if you got security in the building, or a lot of times too, is you might want to just let the local authorities know. Um, just to be prepared, right? What's your plan? 9 times out of 10, I think people were just hurt. I don't think they would do anything, but you need to make an assessment of that person to figure out if they're in danger, right? You always want to be safe, even if you're wrong. You want to err on the side of being safe, right? Based on that information, ask yourself, what concerns might his threat have generated around the office? Should anyone else in the office or building management be alerted? Definitely, you need to alert people, especially HR, security. Once again, security, if you have physical security, like security guards on site, should everyone in the office or others be notified? How are there any HR or legal restrictions? What security actions should be taken as a result of his threat, right? So, and we know some threats are bigger than others, but these are the questions you need to ask, right? You also I always want to have your legal team review anything before you do it, right? Because sometimes you think you're doing the right thing, you could be stepping on people's rights and get sued, right? That's why you always want to run it past the attorney. So once again, we're just doing a tabletop, walking through an active shooter. U.S. cybersecurity. What questions did you need to be asking for that? We're gonna just tiptoe on the physical side today. PPO late at night. So let's see what else they got in there. You're discussing this with the coworker, final arrangements for a visit by a customer. You receive a call from the lobby receptionist team that a recently terminated employee is in the building demanding to recover personal items left behind. They're acting hostile towards the security team in the lobby. Part of HR's responsibility is when you terminate an employee, if you need to make sure you get all their stuff, because I work on a security team, we make sure we box up everything in their desk, right? And we make sure they get that to them a lot, which is sad. Is I used to work at Rack F, which is mainframe security, is they would come to us on Friday at 5 p.m. And when that employee went home, we would take their access away and box up their whole desk, right? Anything look personal or might be personal, it's in the box. And when they come in Monday, it was a joke. If you come in Monday, you log in 3 times and you couldn't get in, they come and escort you. We would have security give them their box, ask them if they need anything else, and they would get escorted out the door. So you wouldn't have this problem of personal items left behind, right? So that's from an HR perspective, and they talked about that before. Is unless you're gonna escort them, which I've seen people escort out in the middle of the day because they were a little testy. But normally, if you go through the new process, you're gonna get fired Friday, and when you come in Monday, you will not be able to get in, and we're gonna have security there to escort you out, out the office with all your personal things boxed off, so we won't have this problem. Let's see what my man said. Blackjack X 45. Sometimes LE will show and guard areas and employees return, but this is fine for the short term frame. Security guard if you for multiple days. No, that's true. That's true. Like I said, when I did security for Rack F for the mainframe, and even recently, we know we're gonna fire you. So like I said, we're gonna take all your access away on Monday. Even if you give 2 weeks notice, unless you are privileged employee, if you give 2 weeks notice on Friday, when you come in Monday, you already gonna be out the system. We're not gonna let you stay around 2 weeks unless you're a value or privileged user, which is probably only 10%. So we're going to pay you for those 2 weeks that you gave, but you're not going to be on site. So we're going to box your stuff up. So that's how you get around this, right? So I always use the joke is I'm going to get my 2 weeks notice and I'm going to have 2 weeks to golf because I know they're going to escort me out, right? I was lucky when I got let go because my contract ended. They let me stay the whole 2 weeks because I've been there for 10 years, though. But normally, if you resign on Friday, Monday you getting escorted out. So once again, we're gonna take care of that HR problem right there. So let's keep going. Once again, hitting the active shooter. We seen it. RIP in the schools. Background information. Once again, sunny day. They recently terminated. Did I go the wrong way? See, I think I went the wrong way. Yep, left behind. Incident begins. You head towards the 17th floor reception to assist with a terminated employee. Meanwhile, you notice the husband of the coworker in the hallway headed towards the restroom and say hello. You receive this text about a loud popping sound within the building. Another coworker calls you and said there is a man firing a gun, right? So once again, we walk through the tabletop. So what's the play and what's the move? Right? We know the play is 911 is gonna get you started, right? What concerns might threats? Am I going? I keep seeing the goal. What action should you take? Can the office be secured? How would you communicate with others in the office? What with other offices? Can you quickly account for employees and visitors? This is a big one. Who's in charge of that situation? Who should call 911? Right? We know multiple people gonna call 911. The big thing is always who's in charge of this situation. Right? From my perspective, what I've seen is Chief Information Security Officer. All right. The CIO is giving the commands, but this falls under the Chief Information Security Officer. So he's feeding all that information to the CIO, who's feeding it to the president, and feeding it to HR, right? So once again, what actions should be taken? Can the office be secured? How would you communicate with others? Can you quickly account for employees and visitors? Who's in charge of the situation and who should call 911? Right. So when let's see. After clearing the halls and conference rooms, you shelter in place in the office with several other employees. The poppy noise now seems to be coming from your floor. One of your employees knocks frantically on the door, pleading to be let in. You hear someone attempting to force the door open, then several shots. After a few minutes of a silence, you assume anyone outside that door has moved on. So once again, who's gonna call 911? Um, Hopefully it'll be the AA or you, because most people have their cell phones on them, right? If you have multiple floors, you have people designated to do that on that floor, right? So when we did it, we had designated people on each floor in each area would be in charge of trying to get people sheltered, trying to get people out. That's going to call 911, feed information back to people so you can try to figure out who's on what floor and how many people are hurt, right? But you need designated people who will do that for you, all right? So that's kind of how we did it. Like I said, when I was in there, I have to pay for. I have they pay for the 2 week place this poop over being nice and giving they cut 2 hours on the final week. Yeah, Blackjack, I've seen that. I work for big organizations too, and everybody's trying to be the best workplace. So if you did that, you don't get 0 points. So now they try to be nice about it. I usually worked at large state or government agencies, so it's your tax dollars, Blackjack Yak 54. So they try to be nice, but I've seen people, and I just looked at a young lady on TikTok who was fired with no warning, and they just paid her to that day they fired her, right? So when I knew it was coming though, because I've been in the game a long time. I was on a bench for a while. They came to me and said, "Well, we're gonna let you go," but they gave me a month of severance, right? So I didn't expect that, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Blackjack, that's actually a good point. So back to the incident, you're gonna have people on each floor that's responsible for this, right? That's gonna try to secure people, try to get people out the door, try to identify how many perpetrators we have on them, right? A lot of people, we try to tell them, those people, make sure you have your phone on your person. If you're charging, even if you go to the bathroom, put your phone in the part of your pocket, something happened, right? But once again, we're trying to be proactive because we're doing a tabletop. So once again, we got people identified that's gonna take those responsibilities, keep people where have their phone, try to call a certain, we call it hotline, so people have that information, right? So that's kind of where you want to be. And once again, when you do these tabletops, you're trying to learn in real time what that will feel like. So based on the information, ask yourself, what do you say to those people who you wanted to open the door for your employees? What are your immediate concerns at this time? How are your floors communicating with others? What are you doing to calm those sheltering with you? Should you be allowed to leave the room now that the shooter has stopped? Right. So all of these are good things. Most times in even schools, you have an all clear for the last one. Right. We had certain alarms. If you hear this alarm, and it actually said all clear, right? Meaning we got the situation on the hand. We got the purple. They have left the building. Right. Then two is um keeping calm, right? And that's when you practice in real life and you have people going certain stuff. They know it's not real, but in a real life, so if they do it enough times, hopefully, if it happens in real life, you know and understands what's happening. We talked about that. We got multiple people on floors, so we communicating with others on different floors, right? Your immediate concern is getting the perpetrator out, right? Because the first responder sense, first thing that before they even help people, right? They got to secure the building and that perpetrator. Either he ran out or you got to deal with that person, right? So your first responders. And two is since you working with them, if you're a large enough agency, they work with us. So what doors should they come in? Who should they communicate? Is there a head of security that they should talk to, right? What's your communication between you and the first responder, right? And if you're a big enough agency or a big enough company, you can actually work with Department of Homeland Security or your local law enforcement to do that, right? Once again, I worked at a state agency, so we worked with Department of Homeland Security because they handle state and federal agencies to do that at a large scale. So for nearly hours, there's no sound from outside your door. It seems quiet. 911 operator tells you the emergency personnel is on the scene. The people you and others in the safe room are anxious to leave. A senior leader in the room with you begins to take control. Once again, we have those people identified in each floor, more than one person. So hopefully, one of those people are in that room that's practicing and understands this, that has communication too with the outside that could give you that all clear signal, right? And two is hopefully the teachers are practicing with the kids so they understand what they need to do in that situation. Who's responsible for deciding when it's safe to leave the room? How would you respond to people wanting to leave immediately? How will you manage senior leadership situation? How will you begin to account for personnel? Right. Once again, on ours, we had designated people and we had an all clear bell that would tell you when it's time. People grown. I always tell people I'm not I'm not in charge of you. I just give you advice. If you want to leave the room, hey, move quick. That's all I got. How will you manage senior leadership? Once again, since we practice this, the people in the room that are designated, they know the chain of command. Once again, I worked at DOD, so I'm so used to those terms, and especially from a military, you know the chain of the command, right? So you're gonna we call them safety coordinators. The safety coordinator is gonna call the CISO. The CISO is gonna work with the compliance director. They're gonna feed all that information to the CIO, who's gonna feed it to the CEO, right? So then two is HR is going to be working usually, which is with the CEO to make sure everything is working according to plan, right? Each supervisor should know who's in or out for that day, right? So they know the call tree and they know who's present. You can get to email. So if you're not going to be there that day, a lot of times they want you to send an email so they can check that email if something like this happens, right? But those are the things you got to talk about and be on top of from like we're doing this tabletop so you can figure out once again the communication tree and what that looks like, right? That's super important. And once again, that's the part of cybersecurity, and I don't do a ton of it. Like I said, I I just worked at a big agency, and it was under CISO, and as a contractor, we would talk about that, what that looks like. And if you went to Indeed, I came back, I looked at there. If you do active shoot, there's jobs for those in big corporations, right? As part of cybersecurity and physical security, right? So maybe that's a way to slide into security, right? Once again, if you're a large organization and you're doing this FERPA, which is we looked at it, the education compliance, there's a physical part of that, right? So let's keep flowing with the tabletop. Gonna do something a little different today. Incident continues. Law enforcement personnel arrives and evacuates the floor. They ask for a list of everyone who should be in the office. Everyone is told to move to in a single file and keep their hands in plain sight. No one is to bring anything with them, right? Because they really want to see their hands and they want you to get in and out. They don't want you running back into danger, right? So, and you see that a lot of times when you look on TV and news, people moving single file with their hands up and the police is looking at them. Just make sure everything's good, make sure nobody's looking suspicious. but you need to practice that. Two is how's that going to move? And two is, and we always talked about this, is you're going to have some people in wheelchairs and can't move and little older people. So what's the play for them? How do you do that? Right. So you got to make sure you have that from, especially in the state. So, because you don't want to get sued because you didn't have the proper facility to help them or have a plan for them. Right. So that's something you need to talk about as an organization. Who was responding? Who's responsible for communicating with law enforcement? For us, it was the chief security information officer, who can quickly account for who should be in the office. Each, which we struggle with that. Each department had their supervisors, which should have a list of who's there for today. Right. So compliance had the master list. So the supervisor had to tell them they were off today or they were here today. Right. So their master list. How do you prepare everyone for disturbing the scene that may encounter as they evacuate? Do you have concerns about leaving the office unsecured? Right. So if you got valuable paperwork or some information that needs to be secured as you leave the door, right? What does that look like? Right. So for us, um, we just had the security coordinators um, kind of as they were leaving, right? You didn't lock the doors, but you would just close them and they would automatically lock, right? So at US, what's the classification of the data? Where is it at, right? And once again, can you leave the office unsecured, right? And we always believe cybersecurity is life is the number one. So if you leave it unsecured, it is what it is, right? So upon evacuation, you and others are concerned. News reporters are asking about the experience. Everyone is told to move to a holding area. Possible questions. Many do not have their purses, wallet, or keys, or now worry about getting home. Many are visibly shaken by experiencing what they witnessed leaving the office, right? So the number one thing is we had a communication team. So you do not talk to news reporters. I even said this today, and I don't even work for DOD. We had a huge communication team. So I just say see communication, right? I'm not trying to talk. So two is if there's an event like that, as you saw on TV, people are coming to get you. Your family's gonna come, so they need to bring another set of keys. Or a lot of times, as we get that shit tomorrow, right? We'll pick it up later, right? We're coming to get you with people are usually coming to pick you up, right? Two is you should, and with these 9 times out of 10 is my phone's always gonna be on my person, right? So if I get my phone, I got my cash app, I jump on Uber and go home, right? But visibly shaking and experiencing from a health perspective, and ambulance and hospitals and either psych wards, what do you have available for people that are shaking, right? When that stuff happens, right? You should have those resources once you get the building secure on staff. And that's stuff you have to talk about as an organization. Once again, that's why you do tabletops. Who's responsible for communicating with the media? Most companies and even small companies, you have a communication team or HR is going to do it. What information will you give them? None. They're talking to communication team. Can you control who else the media approaches? If not, what can you do? Everybody's just coached up to awareness training too, and those events, you just send them to the communications team. What role will you play in assisting personnel getting home, caring for those that are upset by the situation? Two is, and as a company, you might want to talk about that. If people are hurt and they don't have their phones, are you um, getting them rides, getting them Ubers, getting them taxis? Right? What would that look like? 90% of people are gonna have, if it's something you seen it on TV, their family gonna roll up and get them. But for the other 10%, you got to have a plan for that and what that looks like. Right. Once again, from a cybersecurity perspective, active shooter. Right. So we almost done. Something quick. 23. The incident ends, you're able to get back into the building and resume normal business operations. Several individuals asked for more time and emotional recovery from the event. So, I mean, I think you understand what that is as a company, right? And those things is, and we talk about this from a side, you need to be able to run a skeleton crew for that week where you only do the things that are most critical to your business, right? Until you ramp back up. How will you accommodate individuals who have emotional traumatized by the event? What resources will be made, and how long do you think it will take for them to return to normal operations? And that's what you need to talk from an HR perspective. Most mid-sized companies now they have health benefits for you to go to talk to people, talk to psychologists. Once again, what are you going to pay them when they're off? And you need to talk about that organization. What does that look like? All right, is that a 2 weeks or a month? How long are you going to give them, right? And two is if that happens, you should have some kind of insurance for that to help you pick that up, right? Because that's a non-event. Because we got cybersecurity for hacks now, so I think you probably have one for that. So what that would look like. What do you think you would do well? What gaps concern did you recognize? What actions do you need to improve? Plans, procedures, training warning, and other suggestions. Let's see what's the last slide. The big deal in there is once again you need your have your plans, your procedures. Um, we just did a tabletop walkthrough for training and awareness, right? And the testing. The other suggestions I think people miss, and even especially mid-size and even longer size, is your communication with your local authorities, being that police, sheriff, the hospitals, right? What does that look like? If you if you got to figure it out of the day, you're gonna be struggling. But once again, if you know 20 people are hurt, does your local hospital have 20 ambulance? Do you have to call multiple hospitals? Right. And I believe if you talk to them, they'll let you know what that looks like. Once again, I worked for a large state agency, so Department of Homeland actually helped us do these type of exercises, right, to figure out how we would do it and what's the play. Once again, since there's so much evil going on, I just decided to do cybersecurity. People forget as we do active shooters, tornadoes. If there was a bigger attack of what that looks like, if multiple people were hurt, right? Uh, Chief Information Security Officer, along with HR, rolling up to the CIO and the CEO, are responsible for those techniques. If you don't do those practices and have some plans and procedures, you could get fined, right? Depending on who you report to. We looked at FERPA, that's a federal education, schools and stuff, since that happens. But NIST, government contracts have that type of language in there, so you will have it. So that's all I had. I want to do something, like I said, a little physical. So much with active shooters, and I think a lot of people, especially large companies, practice. But I think small to mid-sized companies, they don't do anything like that. You just kind of be on your own, and I think they need to be aware of that. So let me look at casual economists. Let's see if I can click on the link. Let's see. I'm gonna switch over to. Let me get that going. If I can switch over to. Once again, put any questions in the box. I just wanted to do physical. We don't really talk about physical security much, so that's definitely a part. And with the events, I thought it would be appropriate. Why is that so dark? Oh, looking at casual economists. I don't know if you still here. Let's look. Search. Ooh. Okay, they offer certs. Network security essentials. secure Wi-Fi, multi-factor authentication. So you think about obviously going here and looking at some of these certs. Network essential for local managed fireboxes, cloud, Wi-Fi. To be honest, casual, I'm not. Those are all networking certs. I would reach out to Network Bruh. I'm trying to think who does networking. Network Bruh's pretty good. He hasn't been on the he works for AWS. JB. I would reach out to JB Casual. JB Network Bruh and what is he? I gotta think of his. Those are the guys that does networking. That's what your jobs put. Do you do networking now? Networking's hot, and they have the biggest departments. Local managed firebox. Well, your job gonna pay for it if you don't mind me asking? If they pay for it, I'll take it. So I don't know if they pay for it. I know Gabe always talk about his certs being paid by his company. Um, like I said before I left, where I was consulting, that they pay for some of AWS. To be honest, casual, I think you need to reach out to the networking side of it. I don't do networking. That's probably one of my weakest things I struggle with is networking. Uh, uh, multi-factor is cool. Wi-Fi is hot now because everything is Wi-Fi with everybody working remote and even in the office. Then the cloud. I'm anything in the networking in the cloud. I'm just not familiar with WatchGuard, to be honest. So is that a product or are they just the I would do the DevSecOps. I would do the cloud part. If you just trying to get to DevSecOps, most time DevSecOps is in the cloud, so I would do the cloud search, cloud managed firebox, and the cloud watch for Wi-Fi. I would do the cloud stuff if you're doing the DevSecOps. Yeah, I think I'm trying to get to that DevSecOps path myself. I've been debating from an AWS standpoint. So I've been working on their GitHub replacements so you can do version control, checking in, automatically build stuff when you check in. AWS has a facility, so when you check it in, before it gets built in production, you have to approve it. So I'm with you on that DevSecOps. I think that's hot. So I'm kind of easing back into there. I kind of got a little distracted first part of the year, so I'm getting back on my AWS and trying to, like you said, casuals get DevSecOps. Like I said, I'm going to start probably working on a pipeline in DevSecOps and AWS. My fault from AWS perspective for that DevSecOps because those guys are hot and they always looking for DevSecOps. I programmed for a decade too, so I'm familiar with the development part of that. So security part, so I just need to get it from used to setting up their development environment. Are you looking for a particular cloud casual or you just DevSecOps in general? Because in the old days, they had Jenkins, you checked it in, people use GitHub, then you just set up your build with Maven. I used to do Java, so they use Maven builds. Then it would push it into the web server and your database code in there for you. So that's kind of where I'm trying to get to. Once again, we're just gonna kind of cap on it is physical security is part of cybersecurity. as a consultant, I try to be versed in kind of each area. I don't. That doesn't mean I'm a SME in physical. I just need to undersure when we talk about it. I can talk about it at a mid level. Once again, I have to be SME. I've worked with the compliance director on active shooter. Once again, reporting to the Department of Homeland Security. No, that's cool. That's cool. Like I said, you can actually. I've done it on Prem. So once again, we were using Jenkins, Maven from a Java perspective, and once you checked in the code from the developer, they put it on the main branch, built it, then put it in development, then production. So I'm just trying to get used to that from a cloud perspective because everybody seems to be going to AWS, Azure super hot, Google's getting hotter. Then Salesforce has their version of that. If you go to a no code or code version, Salesforce has their version of that. I need to interview this Salesforce engineer slash sales guy. So he said he'd come on my channel. But once again, I'm gonna hang out and see if you got any questions for me. I'm winding down. I am tired. Tomorrow Sunday. I don't know why I'm exhausted. I got to get it together. It needs to warm up a little bit. Midwest. I got to get my workout on. Less barbecue, more working out. So shout out to everybody. Um. So yeah, like I said, no, I think you're doing it right, casual. Are you using any of the tools? Once again, I think Jenkins is big. Maven or any build tools, or you still just trying to work your way into DevSecOps? I know I had a little playlist for that DevSecOps. I'm tired. I'm tired too. Yeah, I'm with you too. I took a month off. I'm trying to study for my CISP, and it's not going well. So I got to get back on that. One of my regrets, I should have passed that like 15 years ago, man. I should have took that CISP. So I think I need to get that underneath my belt. So that's the big one. Then I'm get back on my AWS. So I want to do the CISP and the CRCX, which is the risk version of that. I talk a lot about risk and from a security perspective and compliance. So being to set up a risk register and all that. Yeah, I'll put it in there. I'll put it in there. Here I'll show it. No, let me show it. Let me. I got too many screens open. Did I show it? I got a diff. I'll put it in there. I'll show it and I'll put it in the chat for you. Yeah, I'll be doing a lot sometime. Let's see. I thought I showed it last. Yeah, let's see. Let me share. Let me share. So if you go to my channel, that's the front of my channel. If you go there, there's a Security Plus playlist. There's my AWS security. When I was studying, I was do play. That's my forensic, and that's my DevSecOps right there. Casual. Let me make sure you can still see it. That's my DevSecOps. I'll put the link in the chat box. But yeah, I did what me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so I talked about DNS, DynamoDB. The code pipeline is where you do the check. Then they have a product called DevOps. So I did 6 videos, and I'm probably gonna start doing more because that's really what I want to get into. So let me put that in the chat. Let's see. Play all. Yep. You see it right above where you put in there. So, and like I said, we can chop it up a little bit more. That's where I'm kind of going to. Let's see. Where's that? Oh, that's coming from. So yeah, let me go back. Um, all the people I follow, y'all know all the ones I follow. So shout out to all of them. Video once again, I have my DevSecOps Zero Trust. That's super hot. I hope to do a little more of those. That's my I did critical infrastructure. There's 16. I think I got like 7. So I'm hoping to do some more of those. Compliance is really what I do. So there's my compliance playlist. That's really how I make my living. So I try to be comfortable with all the compliances. So I did a playlist of those you see right there. CGIS is the FBI. Iris Pub 1075. That's really what I make my money for a decade. The NIST stuff, Zero Trust. We talked about FERPA. That's the educational compliance. That's me doing NIST 800. I think I skipped it. NIST 853R5. I just did that one for the NIST. FIPS is encryption and federal information processing. I helped the client do life science, which is FDA. Once again, I worked for a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company. They have their own compliance. That's the NIST 800R4. CMC is the DoD compliance. 171 is businesses doing federal work. And privacy super hot. I touched a little bit on GDPR, CCCPA, Brazil. There's a lot of foreign. The reason that hot is because if you're a global company like AWS, Walmart, you got to understand different data compliances in different countries, which is rare and super hard to do, right? So that's why those get paid. And once again, I taught forensics for 10 years at a community college. So I just did that. I was studying for AWS practitioner. So I just did a stream on the what I was studying. Then once again, I taught 10 years of intro to cybersecurity. Once again, at a community college. So just want to bring that to the channel, and I always put whatever live I have. So if you're trying to figure out what's going on, you can go to my site and say, "Oh, he's going live on this day. On this is next live. We just completed it. Oh no, we're not. We're still on it. I'm so tired, but that's it. Once again, let me check it. I'm about to take my butt to bed. Cool. Yo, if you got any questions, we can chop it up about it, casual. Once again, I'm just getting my toe wet. I developed in Oracle and Forms and Java for a decade, so I understand the development part. I did security for each one of those components before, so I'm trying to put those together and get that DevSecOps money, right? That's the next big bag. Did you? No, I taught it's. I can tell you, it's. I'm from the Midwest, Blackjack. Yeah, I'm from Indiana. There was a private college that got closed. I'm not happy. I taught at ITT Tech for 3 years. Then there's a large university in Indiana called IB Tech. They have 30,000 students all over Indiana and a couple in Chicago. So it's called IB Tech. And I always tell people that's the blueprint from my standpoint. Once you get your certs, you should go to community college, get your associate, right? Because once you get to a certain level, they start looking for degrees. I think, and two is you don't need the whole 4 year, spending gazillion money, right? So I think and a lot of WGU is a community college, and you get your search while you're going, right? So that I'm definitely pushing that. But no, I taught at ITT Tech was a private college that ended up getting closed, and I taught at IB Tech, which is here I can show it up in there for 10 years. Um, It's a pretty good university. Pretty low cost compared to your large university. I ain't trying to log in. It's trying to log me in. I ain't just trying to look at the. Just trying to. Like I said, it knows I used to work there, but let me share that. But so now that's where I worked at for 10 years. Like I said, I don't work there anymore. Why won't it let me? Oh, there it is. Whew, man, I'm dragging. Let's see. Like I said, I ain't worked there in a couple years. So no, that's where I used to work at. They have a nice cybersecurity program. Like I said, little local college. I'm in Indiana. Like I said, they got about 30,000 students, and a lot of people go there. So no, that's where I taught. And let's look at their classes real quick. They got cybersecurity. Cybersecurity. So those are it. Cybersecurity information assurance, adjunct cybersecurity. That's some of the things. 76 medium. You can be that cloud. So 60 hours. They got different associates, cyber academy, cyber and security and information assurance, which is what we talked about. Auditing, compliance, right? Cybercrime, incident analyst, security operations specialist. So I taught there once again for a decade, and we just kind of had a little, a little falling out. PBO don't let students tell him what to do, but it's all good. It's all good. No, I never taught in Gary. I never taught. I've been to Gary. My roommate used to be in Gary. I think there is a branch in Gary. Where I see that? So now I taught in Indianapolis. I'm in the capital. In the capital. You could have saved costs and got certified at the same time. W good for the money. Y'all facts. Yep. I worked with a guy that was from WGU, so I have nothing but good things to say about WGU. Now I taught in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's the capital. So, but I've been to Gary. I've been to Gary. I used to go to Chicago a lot. Once again, my roommate in college was actually a hoop legend in Gary. So I've been there. That was the first place I saw bulletproof glass in the post office. Shout out to Gary, Indiana. So, but no, like I said, I've got a lot of friends that grew up in Gary that moved to Indianapolis. I went to Indiana State. Since it's state college, it's a little cheaper. So a lot of people from Gary went to that college. So once again, I probably know 20 people from Gary that moved to Indianapolis. No, so shout out to Gary. Like I said, no shot, a little rough up there, but I grew up in the hood where I'm from, so I ain't no shot. Like I said, my roommates, I was my first roommate when I was a freshman was from Gary, so we went back to Gary and kicked it a little bit in Gary. Then I went to Chicago, but now that's the school right there. I taught at for 10 years. I might try to get back on. I miss helping young guys and young men get in there because some of them, I had to give them a little push, help them out a little bit, give them a couple little points so they can make it. Facts, Cage, AC units, facts, nah, but nah, shout out to Gary, man. Like we said, we starting from the bottom. Now we're here. I mean, my old butt about to go to bed. Once again, casual economists, check out that playlist, man, and we'll chop it up about it. Like I said, I'm hoping to start doing live labs on DevOps. I need to get back to that. I talked about it. The next steps were me physically labbing and spinning up EC2, spinning up Beanstalks so you can compile your Java and actually put it in Beanstalk, who would from a DevSecOps, build your code and put it on a Tomcat and let it run, right? And you would lock down the Tomcat in the Beanstalk, right? Talk about those. And shout out to Women in Linux. Talk about locking down Kubernetes and Docker, right? When you do DevSecOps, those are containers that you're going to put your code in. So you need to understand how to lock them and handle the your favorite thing, the network against theirs, because you want to control your network traffic, what can see what can get out, and what could not get out on the internet, right? And only your application tier can talk to your database, and all that's part of DevOps from an infrastructure standpoint. So you're welcome. I'm going to bed. Let's hit that hump day tomorrow. Like I said, I don't know why I'm exhausted. 2022 was rough on me, so I'm making my comeback. Now you welcome. Cybersecurity world is calling me. I'm about to pick up. Oh yeah. I'm going to pick it up. Yeah, and let me know what I can do for you, bro. Genius. My job here is to make sure you see somebody in the game and start doing labs. I work with a lot of guys out there. Shout out to Tech G. He has some good stuff. Shout out to Keep It Techie. Shout out to Kev Tech. He's definitely um, get that help desk started. If you have no experience, definitely get that help desk. Then you can jump over cybersecurity. What's my master IT? He's got his thing out there. So there's a lot of guys with good videos and good career development. Shout out to Black Heights. He's helping you with your career development. Shout out to Textual Chatter. He's if you trying to get in the SOC world, that's his world. So I try to send people to him before they come to me, right? A lot of times cybersecurity's last. They want you to get a 2 or 3 years underneath your belt before you get into cybersecurity. So if you're networking, you can take those skills to cybersecurity. I started off as a programmer, got in a purple team doing security, locking down web apps and applications and hooking those up to an Oracle database and making sure that's all secure. What is up, Nether G? How are you doing? We are wrapping it up. I'm doing okay. I'm old. I'm about to go to bed in the Midwest. I got to work in the morning. Cool thing though is I work 100% remote, so I can just roll out in the pajamas and start working. So that's one of the benefits of remote. I don't know if I would ever go back to an office. I'm just so comfortable in my current setup, and I'm great. I'm right. I cannot complain. Like I said, we just talked a little bit out. Check out the replay. We was talking about the physical security from an active shooter standpoint since all these horrific things in school. So what does that look like from a cybersecurity perspective? Because the chief information officer for that school district is responsible for that. Right now, he might delegate that. We had an inspector general that did physical security because I used to work at a large company, but usually that falls from the chief security information officer to the compliance director. I used to help her map those out. We did a tabletop walkthrough from a paper perspective of what that should look like and what questions we should answer. Once again, that's under cyber, which is under the CISO, Chief Information Officer. Active shooter, tornado, attacks, all kind of, different attacks. And once again, since it was a state agency, we work with Department of Homeland and work with hospitals and police officers and sheriffs and if we had to, the National Guard, right? So how do you communicate with those people and get that stuff laid off so you can be safe? And hopefully you want the babies to be safe. But everybody have a great hump day. Check that out, Casual Economist. I'm going to do more of that. I'm sure we'll chat it up in the chat. If you want me to do something special in that DevSecOps, I'll be more than happy to do that. I think I'm gonna hit all of those right in the future. So I need to get back on that. Like I said, I've been laxing the last month. I've been trying to get my wind up to start grinding in 2023. Once again, let's get this hump day. I'm out. I'm PBO. If you need something, professorblackops@gmail.com. Give me 2 days to answer. I haven't looked at my email in 4, so I got to do a better job. I'm old. Don't rush me. I'll get to you. Good night. Like the W. And once again, let's hit this hump day. I'm out. Everybody have a great